The next episode of Nerd, Flicks, and Chill will start in
3, 2, 1, 0.
Hi, I'm Carrie.
And I'm Nick.
And we are Nerd, Flicks, and Chill. Today we are covering Game of Thrones, The Broken Man.
Alright, so what were your immediate thoughts on the episode?
My immediate thoughts on the episode were that we have another, I don't want to say it's a filler episode, because it definitely wasn't that, but another, it was not an action-packed episode. Another character-driven setup episode. Think of last episode and this one as the arrow pulling back, getting ready to launch us into the last 3 episodes of the season, I guess is the best way to look at it. My initial thoughts beyond that were the writing in this episode I thought was really, really strong. We had a lot of really good one-on-one moments between characters.
Yeah, we got a really good script from Brian Cogman this week. I actually really did enjoy this episode. There's a few things that I didn't love, but ultimately, I thought it was pretty satisfying. Again, we're moving the pieces around on the board, kind of getting everybody in place for these next 3 episodes to follow that are going to be enormous.
You know, I want to say something. I was on Twitter after the episode aired, and which, by the way, if you're not following us on Twitter, please do so. We are on there as Nerd Flicks Chill. Both Nick and I take turns in running the Twitter, and usually when I do a tweet, if I remember, I put a dash and a K at the end. But it's great if you want to interact with us, because I tried doing a little bit of interacting with some show watchers last night, and I was questioning a lot of things that people were saying.
What was the stuff that you were hearing?
Well, a lot of it was mainly things from book readers who were really not happy or didn't seem to be very happy with the episode. And I was really questioning it. One of the main things that people were talking about was how a lot of the characters seem to have transportation devices or some kind of teleportation devices getting around. And so I said, well, would you rather see them traveling in every episode? I mean, do you need to see that? Would you rather have some kind of annotation at the bottom of the screen saying 2 weeks later? I mean, like, what are you wanting to see? I think the writers, I think the director and the crew of the show are assuming that we are intelligent and that we can tell that time has passed. Like, for example, Jon Snow in this episode, you can see that the wounds that he had on his face have almost healed. So that tells you that time has passed. It's been at least, maybe a month or so that's passed since the last time that we saw him. There are subtle hints that are telling you that there's been a passage of time. You don't need to see it. I think there's more important things to show.
And there's autonomy within the timelines, too. Not everything is happening on the same timeline for every different region that we visit per episode. So, what might take John 3 weeks would be covered in one episode, but you might get something that takes place over the course of a day in King's Landing. These timelines don't really need to match up. There are certain points where they intersect, but there's not really a reason for them to always match up at all times.
No, I completely agree, because if they were operating completely on the same linear, well, they're all on the same linear timeline, but if they were all, everything is on May 3rd. This is what was happening with everybody. There might be something really interesting going on in the north, but then you have the Greyjoys on a ship. And it keeps cutting back to them being on a ship. I mean, the seasons would have to be really, really super long if everything was to follow the same timeline. So we're kind of getting a Reader's Digest version or a Cliff Notes version, and we're kind of jumping around a little bit, and they're all going to end up converging at one point. To me, that doesn't bother me. To me, that's like really, really nitpicky. You need to look at the big picture here.
Right. And I think as we get into our recap of the episode, there are a couple of book reader things that I do want to address because I've been kind of thinking about some of the different criticisms that I have heard from book readers, and I do want to talk about those in some of the different points that we touch on as we do our recap.
Oh, perfect. So I will sit on some of the other things that I had heard, but I asked for further explanation from a lot of people. Why do you think this? Or, um, there was I'm trying to remember what um, there was it was something with the preview, I think, for next week, where somebody was saying that there was a meeting of two people and they didn't like the context. And I asked them, like, how you don't know the context? You saw just a brief snippet. You don't know the context. Or if this is what we are to believe, what we saw, um I think it's a great context because it's showing conflict. Would you rather these two people meet on the road? That's pretty boring. What? And it's really interesting to me that I'm not being combative when I ask these. I honestly really want to know because I'm not a book reader. So I'm really curious as to what that point of view is or what those expectations are. And if somebody's unhappy with something or they don't like the way something was portrayed, what do they feel that it should have been done? Or how do they feel it should have been done instead of just saying, well, I don't like it? It's like, well, tell me, enlighten me a little bit. And it's very interesting that when presented with that, I got very little response back.
Well, one of the things that you have to keep in mind, particularly when it comes to this series, it's one of the things that makes it really unique is that it's happening now. I mean, the literary work is unfolding now. This is not something that a lot of great fantasy writers have had to deal with, where you have this mainstream adaptation of their work while they're still working on it. And particularly in this particular position that we're in, where the show has now exceeded the books, has created something even more unique. It's almost like if Tolkien was like writing Return of the King while we were watching the Two Towers, and where things were about to get ahead. It's just a strange, unique situation. And one of the things that I keep in mind as a book reader is that this is an adaptation of Martin's work. This cannot be a 24 episode season like we get with a lot of other TV shows because they just don't have the budget, they don't have the time. Logistically, you can't make that happen. So there needs to be things that are done for the sake of expediency. And there are a couple of other book reader things, but again, like I said, I'll touch on those as we get into the recap.
All right. So I will shelve it for real this time, and we'll come back to it. But I think this is a great topic. I think it's something that I'm very curious about. So if you are a book reader and you are listening to this and you're screaming at your iPad or your iPhone or your speakers at me, enlighten me. Please tell me what are some of the things that you wish they would have done differently. Instead of just saying that you don't like something, tell me why. So please contact us on Twitter is probably one of the best ways at NerdFlixChill on Twitter. We are also NerdFlixChill on Facebook. But I think we're a bit more active on Twitter, so that's going to be one of the best ways. So let's get into the episode. And we had a cold open for this show. That's very rare. We haven't had is at first I thought this was the only cold open, but you told me last night that we have had other cold opens before.
Yeah, by my count, this is the fourth cold open that they've ever done. Season 1, Episode 1, so the first episode had a cold open.
Mm.
Season 3, Episode 1 had a cold open that I think was dealing with the Night's Watch Beyond the Wall. And then Season 4 had a cold open where Tywin Lannister melted down Ned Stark's sword. And then we got this cold open last night. And I was reading an interview with Brian Cogman where he talked about the reason for the cold open, and the reason being that they needed to keep Rory McCann's name out of the opening credits
Yeah.
so they wouldn't kind of ruin the surprise of him being back. So they decided to do it that way. And I actually thought the decision to do it was awesome. It made that whole scene feel significant and special, and it was a perfect way to reintroduce the character. I loved everything they did with the Hound in this episode.
I did too. I thought it was really, really well done. I thought Ian McShane was amazing. And oh, one thing with the Hound that I thought was very interesting, did they scale him up size wise for some reason in this episode? Because I don't remember him being so big. Either that or Ian McShane and his band of people are hobbits.
No, the Hound is a big dude. Not quite as big as his brother, but he is still a big dude.
I just don't remember him being that big. Because there was a scene where him and Ian McShane are kind of, sitting on a rock and they're discussing some things, and it quite literally looked like Gandalf and a hobbit sitting next to each other. I mean, it was significant, and I just don't remember it being that different.
It's funny that you mention the Hobbit and kind of Gandalf and the Lord of the Rings series, because this opening scene to me, when you see them constructing what I assume was going to be a church or some kind of shelter, you got the feel like you were in a different world. Like it immediately established this kind of, world that we're not used to. This is almost untouched by the War of the Five Kings and the ongoing conflict and all those different things. This seemed very peaceful, very serene, almost like something you would have seen in the Shire.
Well, even the music lent itself to that too. That I didn't really notice it watching it the first time, but when I was watching it the second time, it really did. It felt like it was something in the Shire. So everybody's smiling and they're working, and it was very much like that, and especially with the music, it was a great setup. So Ian McShane's character, I don't. Did we ever get a name for his character at all?
Yeah, the name of the character is Ray, and for those that are book readers, I think this is a combination of the elder brother and Septon Maribald, who kind of have a very similar role. So this is one of the few plot lines that's still out there lingering that are part of the books. Kind of. It's been remixed a little bit.
Okay. It looks like they're building. I'm assuming they're building a church or something out there, kind of in the middle of nowhere. It seems as if Ian McShane's character Ray is the one who found the Hound. Never addresses him as such. Actually, calls him Sandor Clegane, but he tells him that he's heard tales of him, so he knows who he is. But it seems as if our friend the Hound is kind of turning over a new leaf.
Yeah, and I think the fact that Ray calls him Sandor Clegane is reference to that. He's not calling him the Hound. The idea is that the Hound is dead. The Hound died, on that mountain that day. This is Sandor Clegane. This is a guy who is turning over a new leaf, like you said.
There's a part where Ray is kind of having a little story time with his followers, and he's telling them a little bit about himself, and he says that he slit a boy's throat, that he used to fight. He robbed people. He was an arson, and he was a murderer, and he just couldn't live with himself after committing that crime, after murdering that little boy. He heard the mother's voice, and he looks directly at the Hound. I'm still going to call him the Hound. He looks directly at the Hound and he says, "It's never too late to come back." And I
Yeah.
thought that was really, I mean, just that was directed right at him. But I think that line is a little weighted. I think there's some other meaning into that line as well. I don't think it's directed just at the Hound.
Yeah, and this is one of the things that I was going to talk about that's kind of a book reader issue that I noticed that a lot of the book reading community had with this, because this is a little bit of a nod to what's called the Broken Man speech. It takes place, in A Feast for Crows, as Brienne and Podrick are kind of making their way through the Riverlands. They encounter this character, and there's this whole dialogue back and forth with this Septon And basically, what Ian McShane is saying here is kind of a variation of the Broken Man speech. And what a lot of people were upset about is that the speech itself from the books did not make it verbatim into the episode. And I will say that the content of that speech in the books is significantly better than what was written for Ian McShane. However, that being said, one of the things that I want to remind people of is that this series is an adaptation. So Brian Cogman, who's the writer of the episode, is not going to plagiarize the words of George R.R. Martin, even though it's coming from the same source material. I don't know of any screenwriter that would take something that large and adapt it verbatim into the script. I think that that's kind of a weak move for a screenwriter. I think a screenwriter, even when they're adapting material, they want to kind of reword and rewrite and retell some of it. And I think that's where some of that kind of that strain within the book reading community comes from on this. I think the fact that that speech, more than anything else in the books, is so significant. And basically what it is, it's George R.R. Martin's kind of getting into the head of a soldier in this era and what it would be like and what it's like when you go to war for some other lord and then that lord is killed and you got some other lord telling you that you work for him. Meanwhile, your shoes are falling apart, you get wounded, and then as soon as that wound heals you catch another one, and then it's a short leap there from being surrounded by dead family, dead brothers, dead friends, and then you're stealing from them, stealing their clothes, and it kind of is this whole downward spiral from what people are exposed to in war. It's basically the concept that war makes animals of us all, not intentionally so. It's just kind of the byproduct of the culture of war, and that's Martin's statement in that particular speech. And I think a lot of people were just upset that it didn't make it in the exact wording that he had it in the books.
Yeah, it seems to me that with an adaptation, that not only is the material adapted, but I think we as recipients of it, we need to adapt too. I think we need to realize that it's not going to be the same. It can't be for a variety of reasons, whether it's time, whether it's budget, whether it's the fact that it just doesn't work on screen like it does in a book. And again, a lot of the stuff that I was reading last night, it made me wonder. I was like, I wonder if some of these people, if this is the first time they've ever had a book that they really love that's being adapted into something, because I'm thinking this is what always happens. I don't know why it's coming as any surprise to anybody, but I think it's the fact that and it was something you brought up earlier, that this is very different, and I don't think this has ever happened where the source material and the show or the movie, or the adapted material is surpassing what's being written. And this is a really unique time, and who's to say that some of the things that we've seen in the show aren't going to happen in the books. There's things that people are complaining about, and it's like, well, you're complaining about it, but if you get the book and you read it and it happens in the book, are you going to be okay with it then? I don't understand.
Well, some of this stuff is, like I said, it's remixed book material from A
Yeah.
Feast for Crows. So this stuff is already out there. I did want to point out a couple of things in here, too, that I did just happen to notice, particularly in this first scene, right? Even before we ever get to the credits. There's some interesting stuff in there, or actually it might have been right after the credits, but there's some interesting stuff in there about when the Hound is talking to Ray, and Ray says to him, "God's not done with you."
Yeah.
And the Hound says to him, "I've heard that before, but the guy was talking about a different God. He was actually talking about Beric Dondarrion
Mm.
from a couple of seasons ago when he had that run-in with the Brotherhood Without Banners." So that, again, is another mention of the Brotherhood Without Banners, who we do run into a little bit later on
Yep.
in this particular sequence. And then I couldn't help but notice another callback in this scene where Ray says, something to the extent of, maybe it's the seven, maybe it's the red god, maybe it's the drowned god, maybe it's all the same thing. It very much echoes the sentiment that Davos had way back in, I think, the second episode of the season before they resurrected Jon.
Yeah.
And that theme itself has kind of existed throughout this season, that maybe it's all the same thing.
Yep. There was something else that was said that was standing out to me, and then now it has escaped my brain. Oh, that the Hound says where you don't know the things that I've done. Then why haven't they punished me? And he just and Ray just kind of looks at him and walks past, and he's like, they have. Like, he's had a hard life. He's been through a lot. He was almost, at death's door, and has been brought back and is being, Ray's telling him, they're not done with you yet. That's punishment enough. You've been through a lot more than the average person has. I think that shows his character and how strong that he is, that he doesn't even view it as such. It's like, it's just life. It's just hard. And
Yeah, I
I think a lot of
agree.
people would break down before that.
Definitely. I think you hit that right on the head. I think that it does show that Sandor Clegane does have some kind of integrity. He's not somebody who believes he's suffered enough for what he's done, and there's something kind of, I don't know, admirable about that.
Yeah, he's got a heart. There's a heart in that big old dog.
I gotta tell you though, and I love the setup of it though, where you're seeing the people carrying the logs. It's like four people to a log, and
Yeah.
the Hound just has that thing. Even with a limp, he's still carrying that log on his shoulder. He's still a bad dude, man.
Well, he had a compound fracture in his leg, and he's still carrying a tree more than anybody else. So let's see what else happened there. Oh, there was quite a bit that happened there still.
We do see the Brotherhood without banners again.
We do. Yeah, they're having their little story time, and then all of a sudden, some three gentlemen on horses arrive, and it looks like they're scouting, is what I took from it. They're just kind of scouting. They're checking stuff out.
Did
Again,
they?
I think this was a little bit more of a weighted scene. There's more going on here than surface
Do you
area.
think? Do you think they recognize the Hound?
Most likely. It's kind of one of those where Ray knew who he was. He's heard tales. The people there are afraid of him. He's somebody that stands out. He's a very tall, big man and has a disfigured face. And the things that he's done are kind of notorious in that area. So I'm sure he is recognizable. If they didn't show any recognition from what I could see, but I'm sure they did.
So this is a reintroduction to the Brotherhood without banners, if that's who these guys are, and we get the impression that they are. The Hound believes that they are because they do that whole "night is dark and full of terrors" thing,
Hmm.
and so it appears as though the Brotherhood without banners is taking on a much more nasty disposition since the last time we saw them.
Yeah, which kind of leads us down a road that a lot of fans have been speculating about, and leads me to believe that there's somebody hiding in the trees there that we have yet to see.
Yeah,
Possibly.
the idea being that maybe the Brotherhood without banners is under new management.
Yeah. And like I said, there are a couple little things. Again, the show has got me like really, really reading into things. Like I said before, Ray's character says that, it's never too late to come back,
Hmm.
which he's addressing the Hound that way as well, but I almost kind of took it as like a wink and a nudge for future episodes along this line with the Brotherhood, with their new management. It's never too late to come back. And then Ray asks the gentleman on the horses, who are you protecting us from? Because he asks him, what are you guys doing? Like, we're here to protect the people. Well, who are you protecting us from? And the guy kind of looks off into the distance. And I kind of took that as, we're scoping you out because if you say the right things, we might be protecting you from, what's over there. I don't know. I'm breaking out my tinfoil for that. I'm guessing. After they leave, they say we have nothing for you. You are more than welcome to stay for dinner. It looks like they didn't take them, or maybe they did take them up on that. So they're taking them up on that. The Hound is out chopping some firewood, and Ian McShane is like, "You've worked enough. Let's come and have some dinner." He's like, "Nope, it's gonna be a long night. I'm gonna continue chopping." He's like, "All right, I'll save you some soup." And the Hound is chopping and chopping and chopping, and then he hears a scream. He goes back, and he sees that everybody's been slaughtered.
Yeah, it it doesn't happen exactly like that. There are some jump arounds a little bit and a little bit of a passage of time, and also a passage of distance too, because the Hound seems a little bit further away.
Yeah.
When he actually does hear all the screaming. But yeah, he comes back and everybody's been butchered. And if this is the Brotherhood, and we're led to believe that, but who knows? It could be anybody, really. If this is the Brotherhood, again, this represents a change to a much nastier disposition. And my only thing about this is I don't really understand it from the Brotherhood's perspective. This is not something that's really in their character. But again, I guess, who knows? Maybe they're all broken men too, and maybe that's the point of this whole thing.
I don't think we know the whole story yet. And I think it will be revealed to us, but we only know a snippet. I think we will know why they did what they did, because I don't think it was random.
So at the end of the episode, the Hound walking through, looking over the carnage, comes to see Ray is hanging, from the structure that's been built, and this clearly makes the Hound angry. And the episode ends with him picking up an axe, presumably ready to beat wholesale Brotherhood Without Banners ass.
Oh yeah, he is getting vengeance.
And the Hound has had his run-ins with the Brotherhood before. Like I said earlier, he had that trial by combat with Beric Dondarrion where he killed him, and then Thor Samir brought Beric Dondarrion back to life. So the Hound knows the Brotherhood. He's had run-ins with them before, but this looks like a different Brotherhood.
Yeah, we'll see. I have a feeling this will not be the last we see of them. All right, so next we are at King's Landing, which one of my favorite locations that we visit this episode because of the things that happen.
Yeah, we get a lot of good stuff here. We get this conversation between Marjorie and the High Sparrow that is not in any way creepy, right?
If I had something, I would have thrown it. The conversation between the two of them upset me so much. So much. Yeah, he tells her that she has a duty to her husband and the realm and the gods to service her husband.
Yeah, they basically want to use her as a broodmare for the theocracy. Just keep firing out heirs to the throne so you can have this long running reign of 1,000 years kind of nonsense.
He tells her, King Tommen has told me, you haven't visited the marriage bed. And so I'm also trying to think of the conversation that happened previously between Tommen and the High Sparrow, where Tommen confides in the High Sparrow to tell him that he's not getting any. I'm not sure how that.
Man, Tommen just needs a dad.
And that's what the High Sparrow is I guess trying to be and trying
Yeah,
to do, and he's just falling right into it. But I
that's
mean,
why
is that something you're going to tell your dad? Dad, I'm not getting any.
Well, I mean, this is what makes the manipulation by the High Sparrow so complete. Tommen doesn't have a father figure. He also doesn't have many friends. He didn't really have a brother because his brother was a psycho, and you can kind of see it having an impact on him. He doesn't have many positive influences. In fact, he doesn't know that Jaime's his real father, but he just kicked his own father out of the city. So, this is kind of part of what makes the High Sparrow's manipulation so cruel. And he's trying to manipulate Marjorie as well, but Marjorie's a little bit more mentally strong. It's also interesting to me that she's reading from the Book of the Seven, and she's reading about, I think it was from the Book of the Mother. I'm not remembering which one, but The quote she reads is, "A woman calms a man's brute nature." And even that line to me is kind of a manipulation in and of itself. It's manipulating a woman to believe that it is she who calms a man's nature, but man's nature is still as conqueror, which is kind of an interesting way that the Faith of the Seven is establishing the patriarchy. Because that to me is what this is all about. It's all about the patriarchy here.
And how incredibly just insulting to Marjorie, where she is so smart, so cunning, probably one of the most skilled in strategy of anybody in that region right now, and is being told, you need to service your husband and be a baby maker. It doesn't
Yeah.
matter what you think, it doesn't matter what you feel. You don't need to have desire, you just need to have patience.
Yes,
Oh.
you just need to lay there and let Tom stick it to you, and while you're
Oh.
and while you're at it, tell your grandma to get the hell out of here.
Oh, well, he didn't even say that. He didn't say that Lady Olenna needed to leave. He suggested that Marjorie, teach her the new ways, or else he would fear for her safety.
Yeah.
And I think he took a little bit too much delight in that. I don't think he wants her to leave. He wants to see her do her penance or whatever. So then we get a meeting between Marjorie and her grandmother, which is almost my favorite scene of the episode. There's three things that really stood out to me. This was one of them. We have Lady Olenna and Septa Unella. Did I get that right this time?
You absolutely got it right.
Yay! I'm
The
horrible with names, and this is really trying me. Too similar. Uh, just great back and forth, great writing for her, great portrayal of Lady Olenna always. And
yeah.
she did not disappoint this episode.
No, she tells Septa Unella that she could use a good bashing. It's pretty awesome stuff. And I love Septa Unella. I don't I she's just kind of captured my heart. She doesn't say anything. She's just this statuesque uh you know pillar of religiosity who will just beat the hell out of you. I think she's a great character, even though she doesn't really do anything except ring a bell and tell you to confess.
That's what you want. You want the woman just to sit there and say and do nothing. You're just like the High Sparrow.
Hey now, hey.
Well, you and Septa Unella and me and my love for Tormund, so it's okay. I get
I'd like
it.
Septa Unella can do a walk of shame. I would not mind.
Oh, goodness. I think she's good. I don't think she needs to.
I know she's no reason, but who knows? You never know. This show goes weird places.
It does. And it did in this episode too. But it the fact that Septa Unella was there overseeing the meeting between Marjorie and uh, Lady Olenna tells me that the High Sparrow doesn't fully trust Marjorie.
Maybe. The more I think about this, it could go either way. It could be a situation where we don't really know who's pulling the strings as far as having Septa Unella there. What if Marjorie's saying, "Oh, I'll take her with me everywhere. She'll be like my, number one religious pal, and she'll come with me everywhere I go." So we don't necessarily know. I know on the surface it definitely comes off as though the High Sparrow is probably like coordinating this whole thing, but I'm still not sure who has the psychological advantage here or the strategic advantage.
Yeah, I'm seeing it as she's there to oversee, and then she's going to go back and report to the High Sparrow. But Marjorie, being the cunning lady that she is, she's able to get a message to her grandmother because her grandmother is like, "What is happening? What is wrong with you? What is going on? This is crazy." And staying completely in character, she's able to pass along a little message. And I thought it was so wonderful and subtle when Marjorie kind of gets on her knee and passes off. We see later that she passed off a note to her grandmother and you can kind of hear the paper crinkle a little bit when she does it. But I loved Lady Olena's just kind of, she kind of jumps and does a startled look like, oh, what is happening right now? Okay, I'm going to play along too, but I don't want to play along too much because it's going to seem too obvious that you just gave me a note or let me know that you're playing along. There was just so much that happened in that moment that was so well done.
The Tyrell women are great at sleight of hand.
Yeah.
They're,
Yes.
Lady Olenna did it when she got the thing off of Sansa's
Oh, right.
necklace.
Yes, yes,
We've seen
yes.
her do it before. Now
Yep.
Marjorie's got it.
Yep.
It's also really cool too that when the scene ends and Lady Olenna goes out and opens up the note, she sees it's the rose, the sigil of House Tyrell, which is really fun in that Lady Olenna kind of hates that sigil. She's mentioned it on the show before. She talks
Yep.
about how it's on all of her clothes, it's on her bed sheets, it's on her chamber pot. She hates seeing the symbol. She doesn't even like their house words of grow strong, but in this particular case, it serves as a signal
Yep.
that I got this.
Yeah. Yeah, she probably thinks very different of that sigil now. And just so wonderfully and masterfully done that she was able to pass that note along. No words. Even if somebody were to come and see, even if Septa Unella were like, hey, I caught wind of that. I saw that, you passed this note. Let me see that note. And it's just a flower. That can mean
There's
anything.
there's another little detail that's in that conversation between Marjorie and Lady Olenna, and that is that for Loras to be released, he would have to
Yeah.
renounce his name and title, which means he would not be the heir to Highgarden.
Yeah.
So that's a big thing, and that's been kind of casually thrown around. I do feel that the show has really underserved Loras's character quite a bit. I kind of wish we saw more of the Knight of Flowers.
Well, I mean, and who knows? We very possibly could. I think we will see more of him before this season is out. So we have another scene in King's Landing, and this is just lovely, where we see Lady Olenna sitting at a table and she's writing a letter. Do you have any thoughts on who she's writing a letter to? Have you thought about
I
it?
I don't. I really have no idea. I was wondering if maybe that's no, actually I really don't. I got nothing good on that one.
I think she's writing to Littlefinger.
Really.
Yeah.
Wouldn't be the first person in this episode to do that.
Nope, not at
That's
all. And I
that
think he's got messages coming at him from multiple sides, I
could
think.
be ravens flying everywhere.
It's right. No, but I think that she's writing to Littlefinger because that's who she was kind of conspiring with before. So I'm guessing she's writing to him. I don't know.
Maybe I'm really kind of in the dark as to who that could be too. I have maybe kind of
Or
a
maybe she's just sending word that she's heading back to Highgarden. She's sending announcement that she's returning, to give them a warning prior to her arrival. Maybe that's what it is.
if she is seeking out some kind of protection, it's very possible, or if she's trying to do anything militarily or anything like that, it is possible that she would maybe reach out to Randall Tarley. But that's a pretty wild guess on my part.
Hmm. So while she's in the middle of writing this letter, Cersei approaches, and it has to be one of my favorite exchanges in this whole series between her and Cersei. It was just delightful. Lady Olenna basically tells Cersei that everything is shit because of you. Everything that's gone wrong has happened because of everything that you've done. I am taking no fault in this. I'm not. Uh, I'm not going to stay and see it get even worse. I'm out of here. Everything is falling around you, and it's all of your fault.
And this is Lady Olenna at her best. Like this is true Queen of Thorns right here. This is what does she say? It's like, I wonder if you're the worst person I've ever met. You get to a certain age, it's hard to remember.
Yeah.
She's just needling Cersei at every chance she gets. What's something that stood out to me is that in this conversation between the two, Cersei talks about how she loves Tommen, and she uses the line, "It's the only truth I know." And that line is actually directly from the song, The Rains of Castamere, which is
Oh,
kind of that Lannister house song
yeah.
about how Tywin Lannister basically wiped out an entire family and their house no longer exists in Westeros.
Oh, interesting.
But I don't know if it's just some kind of meta commentary. I don't know if it's an Easter egg. I don't know if it's something that Cersei is intentionally using. A little hard to
Foreshadowing.
put my finger on what the purpose of that
Yeah.
usage was, but it just jumped out.
Well, a couple things in this little exchange that really stand out to me was that after Lady Olenna tells her, everything has gone to shit. It's all your fault. Cersei's like, "Yeah, you're right. I admit it." And Lady Olenna does this little double take. It's like, "Really? You do? Okay." So say, "Yeah, I admit it." And then I love this because I don't know if this was intentional. Probably not, but in my world, I would like to think that it is. That Cersei says a quote, a very famous quote from Arrested Development. She says, "I've made a very terrible mistake."
Yeah, she channels her inner Joe Bluth.
That just made me chuckle. Oh, and Lady Olenna says, "Well, what are you going to do? Are you going to kill them all?" And that's very similar to lines that we heard repeated in the last episode.
Yeah. Are you gonna?
So,
Yeah. She says, "Are you gonna kill them all by yourself?" And what's interesting is the look on Cersei's face during that line. And I really love the work that Lena Headey's done playing Cersei. There's a lot of great subtle acting here,
yeah.
but you can tell without any vocalization that this is a person who is at the end of their rope.
Yeah.
I don't exactly know what it's going to be, but Cersei's gonna lose her shit,
Yeah.
and it's going to be big, bad, and bloody. And I don't know when it's going to happen, but she's going to do something completely insane. And I don't know what it is, but
Yeah. I have ideas of what it could be. I
I
don't
think it's
know.
I think they foreshadowed some
Yeah.
stuff. But
Yes. Yeah, I agree. But yeah, she's in desperation right now. She's telling Lady Olenna, we need to do this together. We need to team up. And Lady Olenna's like, "No."
no, she's like, screw you, I'm
No,
out of here.
this is your problem. Everybody's abandoned you. Everybody hates you. I'm not teaming up with you. And oh my gosh, this line is so good that Lady Olenna says, "You've lost, and it's the only joy I can find in all this misery." So good. One of the things I really liked the most, not only was the writing so good, but just how calm this scene was. How calm the delivery was. These biting, stabbing words at Cersei, but just delivered so calmly, which makes them seem that much sharper.
Well, I think this show is really at its best when you get actors on a screen together that are heavy hitters just kind of going at it. Like Lady Olenna had great scenes with Tywin Lannister. Tywin Lannister, was just such a phenomenal character.
Hmm.
So when you get this chance to see, Lena Headey and Diana Rigg just kind of have a very subtle stripped down scene where they're both able to kind of eviscerate each other with words is really, really great. Although it's really more one sided.
Oh yeah, because Cersei's just there, kind of taking the blows, and you can even see at one point she has this really big swallow that she's just, I mean, quite literally swallowing her pride as she's trying to grovel figuratively with at Lady Olenna. Just, I was surprised at that. I was waiting for the mountain to take a step forward or do something, and he
It's
didn't.
funny. It's funny that you say that because I have thought about that all season long. That at some point she's just going to be like, "Fuck this, kill them all,"
Yeah.
and that's what he's going to do. And I feel like Cersei has such a hair trigger temperament that it could really come at any time.
And I really thought that it was going to at that moment because I think this is one of, I mean, Cersei's been beaten down quite literally so much, and you would think she would be at her breaking point, but she is so composed, much like Lady Olenna herself, but she's so composed and so reserved that she just keeps it all inside. And at some point, I think we're going to completely see that just combust.
Agreed.
And yes, that was a very weighted word when I said that. So let's see. After King's Landing, we have a lot of stuff that's going on up in the north. We have the tour of the North that's happening with Jon and Sansa and Sir Davos. They're trying to rally the houses of the North.
Yeah, yeah. Well, first they have to stop off at the gift to talk to the wildlings.
Right, and not all of the wildlings are on board.
Yeah, but thanks to Tormund and Wun,
Yes.
they come along pretty quickly. I mean, they didn't really have a whole lot of defense to what Tormund's saying. These guys do owe their lives to Jon. Jon has saved them. They would all just be part of the Night King's army at this point. And if Jon does lose in his siege of Winterfell, then they will be next. So they don't have many options here.
No, and I love the fact that one is like snow, and he gets up and walks over, and the other one's like, "All right, we're with you. If the giant wants in, we're in too."
Yeah, that's if you have a giant, if you have a giant, whoever side the giant is on wins
That's right.
in terms of argument and debate.
Yes, and John won that one. So after we get the wildlings all on board, we get to visit Bear Island.
Yeah, we get that beautiful establishing
Oh,
shot of Bear Island.
gorgeous. As soon as I saw that shot, I was like, okay, that's the area of Westeros that I would want to visit. It's beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. And we get a new character, one that we've heard about before. We've heard mention, um, was it last season or the season before?
It was last season.
Last season, we heard mention of Lyanna Mormont.
Yeah,
We finally get to see
the
her.
wretched girl.
Oh my gosh, she was delightful. They need to
She
do
was terrific.
they need to do a reboot of the Addams Family right now, and she needs to be Wednesday Addams right now because that was amazing.
Yeah, she was great. I mean, she had that kind of dry wit that cut down Sansa.
Oh yeah.
She's like, wait, I thought you were Bolton. Or are you Lannister? I've heard conflicting reports.
Oh, so good. So good. Again, the writing. You're talking about subtleties in acting performance, but there's real subtleties in the writing as well. It's very skillfully done.
And Jon goes in there thinking, "Hey, I knew your uncle, and
Oh, and
he
Sansa's like,
made me as
"Oh,
a steward."
yeah." And Sansa's like, "Oh my gosh, you're gorgeous, and I think you're going to be gorgeous as you get older, because I'm a girl and I can talk about how pretty we are." And she's like,
Yeah,
"Yeah, no, I'm not. I'm not. It's enough small talk. Let's get to the chase." I
yeah,
loved
and
it. Just cut him down.
just when it looks like Jon and Sansa are going to fail in winning over the Mormonts, Uncle Davos comes in,
Yeah,
smooths the
because
whole thing over.
Yeah, because he's got a way with little girls. And I don't mean that in
That's
a gross way.
that's a,
That
yeah,
didn't come out right.
that's weird.
That didn't come out right. But you
Well,
know what I
that's
mean.
yeah, he's Uncle Davos. He
Yeah.
just and you could see him kind of replicating that relationship that he had with Shireen and his ability to
Yeah.
communicate with her, and then talking to um, Lyanna Mormont. Hopefully, she doesn't get burned alive.
Oh, no, 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 no. No. I hope that doesn't happen either. But I thought it was really interesting that John, when he's, speaking to the brothers of the Night's Watch, or when he's speaking to the wildlings, he's so skilled at public speaking, and he's motivational, and he's able to rally the troops and get everybody together, and then he gets in front of this little girl and he just completely chokes. He loses it.
Yeah. Well, they're trying to round up support, but they don't have anything more than the Stark name right now. And Jon doesn't even have that. So I think they're finding it a harder sell than they thought.
Well, I think they're also realizing too that their family, Rob did some really shitty things to some of the other families in the north. and the other families are not very happy about it. Sansa's got the name of Stark, but Leanna brought up a good point. You're married to a Lannister, and then you're married to a Bolton. What's the deal? You're not. Yeah, underlying you're a Stark, but how do we know that?
Right. And you're also just getting some of the residual impacts of, war and a situation where everybody is forced to defend their own keep and they don't quite have the support that they thought. And there's a lot of moral complexity here. People aren't just going to, raise their banners for the Starks right away. It's going to be a little bit more difficult of a sell than I think they expected it to be. But I'm already hoping to get a spinoff of the Bear Island 62.
What a random number. Totally random.
It'd be like 62 Jorah Mormonts.
Not 50, not 100. 62.
62. Hey,
Yeah.
they need everybody they can get.
Yes. So they get 62 more months. They try to get the Glovers on board. That doesn't happen.
No, they had just taken back Deepwood Mott, and so they're not willing to get kind of back into it again. They've been fighting long and hard enough to get back the land that they had, and to take back their ancestral home, and it was the Boltons that helped them out. Now, I'm not sure that they're 100% loyal to the Boltons. Maybe if they saw a tide swinging towards Jon, they would support him, because they did take the meeting with him and they did have respect for Ned. And I mean, the Starks have ruled the North for thousands of years. So there's a lot of respect and reverence. But again, this was kind of what Davos said, like, people love the Starks, but not more than they love not having their family skinned alive.
Yeah. Yeah, and all those houses have lost lots of their family members because of the Starks as of late. So yeah, they're having a hard time getting everybody together. We find them back at Stannis's old camp.
Yeah, and two things jumped right off the screen to me
Yeah.
as soon as I saw them there. One, Davos is going to find out about Shireen,
Yeah.
and two, Jon is essentially doing the exact same thing Stannis did last season.
Yep.
Like, Jon is very stubborn here. I actually did the math that's
Yeah.
presented in the show, because this season has done a great job of telling us about different army sizes.
Yes.
So Jon has 2,000 wildlings, 62 Mormonts,
Uh-huh.
200 Hornwoods, 143 Mazens. That gets him to 2,405 soldiers.
Do we know how many Ramsay has?
5,000. But
Okay.
he does not have a giant and a red witch. So,
Or 62 more months.
yeah, and that's like 620.
That's right. Because they
by
fight.
the,
They're worth 10 men.
by the
So
associative property of Mormonts.
that's right. So in this, knowing that it's a numbers game and knowing that their numbers are down, it looks like Sansa takes this opportunity when she sees that there are some ravens at their encampment, and she starts writing a letter.
Yeah, it looks like, I mean, seems kind of obvious to me that this is going to go to Littlefinger.
Yeah.
This is kind of an interesting scenario to me, because I don't quite understand why Sansa's keeping this a secret. I don't know why this is on the down low. But I will say that in that debate that kind of happened prior to he seeing her write the letter, she's telling Jon, you're trusting Sir Davos, but Stannis is dead. Stannis lost. He
Yeah.
lost at Blackwater. He lost here. If we can go get the Kerwins on board, we've got more men. Sansa has a point, whether you agree with her or not. And Jon's being extremely stubborn here. And this is really similar to what Davos and Stannis ran into in the exact same spot. So there's going to have to be something that's going to break this thinking. There's going to have to be something that's going to turn the tide in this particular thing. Because right now, if they were to go to battle right now, if they were to attack Winterfell now,
Oh, they'd be slaughtered.
they would lose.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, yeah,
But
completely.
with the Knights of the Vale, that would definitely tip the scales.
Yeah, and I really think that's who she was writing. I mean, who else would she be writing? So let's see, where else do we have to go? Oh, River Run, with a very poorly run siege by the phrase
The
that's
phrase suck.
happening.
The phrase just suck. They're just
Yeah.
they they acquired their power in the most sinister way you possibly can. They're just awful.
Yeah. So we see the Lannister army approaching, and you just see the Lannister army as far as the eye can see.
8,000 again.
8,000. Again, numbers
Yeah, we're getting
we're
numbers.
hearing. Yep.
And
Uh,
that's not their entire force. There's also a very interesting line in there that Jamie says how he will someday control all of the Lannister forces. And I was a little bit taken aback by that because I thought he might have been in control of all of their forces now, but I didn't know what that line was trying to tell me.
I guess maybe they have some of their forces back at Casterly Rock or something
Well,
hanging out.
they can definitely mobilize an even larger force. That's one thing.
Yep.
Um, but just in terms of his level of power that he has in leading the army, I thought was kind of an interesting thing. I guess we'll probably come back to it at some point.
And we have the return of Braun. We have
We
Braun back.
do. Braun fans get their Braun fix.
Yes.
I like the way he's not like shoehorned in there. They actually give him a purpose because you're kind of like, all right, we've got all these soldiers. What is the sellsword gonna do? And they told him like dig trenches or something.
Yeah.
Show them how to dig a trench.
He's like, yeah, yeah, and you're gonna give me a castle, and you're gonna give me a highborn woman, and Jamie's like, yeah, I will, because a Lannister always he's like, don't say it. He
Yeah.
interrupts him, don't say it, and I love that we have this is now twice in this season so far where Danny, she's always reciting her names, and we get Tyrion, who's just all that, kind of yada yadas her all of her names, and then we get Braun interrupting Jamie. It's like, dude, don't say it. I know it. Whatever. Let's we've heard it. Let's move on. I thought that was kind of funny. So yeah, we see the phrase trying to get the Tullys to hand over the castle. We're gonna slit Edmure's throat, and we see the Blackfish standing up there, and he's just kind of assessing all of this. He's taking it all in, and he's smart. He's fought many battles. He's watching all of this craziness that's happening, and he knows they're not going to do it. I think it's a combination of he knows they're not going to do it, and he doesn't care if they're going to do it. Because he even says to Jamie later, he's already marked for death. You just get it over with.
Yeah, this meeting between the Blackfish and Jamie. Now, this is something that was also in the books. There's a lot of great dialogue in the books between the two. And I thought this scene is not, while not being an exact replica of what happens in the books, I thought this, the adaptation of it was terrific. And I love the back and forth between the two. Uh, Jamie in the Lannister armor is fucking awesome. Like, that armor is so cool.
Yeah.
Like, you get why the Lannisters are so impressive when you start to see that army and you see Jamie kind of leading it with that gear on. It looks awesome. But again, another great spot to see two characters facing off. You got the Blackfish and you got Jamie, and the dialogue between the two is really interesting in that we get Jamie basically saying, "You're trespassing. What are you even doing here? The war's over. You're not fighting for anything. What's the point?" And the Blackfish basically responds by saying, "As long as I'm alive, this war's still going on."
Yeah. When he says too, I was born in this castle, and I will die in this castle. And I hope that's not foreshadowing right now for him, um, I'm not familiar with the history. So the Tullys used to have control of that castle, and so they got control back. How did they lose control of the
All
castle? I
right.
don't know what the history is here.
So the Tullys have ruled over the Riverlands for about 1,000 years, kind of similar to the Starks in Winterfell.
Okay.
And River Run is the house seat for the Tullys. It was run by Hoster Tully, who we saw die a couple seasons back. That was Kat's father, and his brother was the Blackfish. Um, what's really unique about River Run is that it's set along two rivers, and then there's this like man-made trench that can be used to flood with water to essentially create a moat around River Run that serves as kind of a fortification. It makes it almost impossible to take the castle. The castle's fallen very few times in history. It was given to the Freys by the Crown after their assistance with putting down the Robb Stark rebellion,
Oh, okay.
and the Blackfish had taken it back.
Gotcha. So it was their gift after successfully pulling off the Red Wedding.
Yep.
Gotcha. Okay. For some reason, I didn't catch that. So good. Oh, thank you. So yeah, really good. Again, much like with Lady Olenna and Cersei, we have the Blackfish and Jaime, where just great dialogue between the two of them, and just so calmly delivered. I love that it's like we're having adult conversations. You don't have to scream and yell at each other to get your point across. You don't have to scream and yell to be threatening or to make threats at somebody else. So I actually kind of really enjoyed this calm, controlled. To me, that sounds so much more menacing, and it's so much more threatening because you're not showing a display, you know?
And I like the way the Blackfish says to Jaime, "We can survive in here for 2 years. We have 2 years worth of food and provisions.
Yeah, do you?
How long do you have?"
Yeah, yeah,
Because the Lannisters have people gunning for them. I mean, this
yeah.
is not a time of a lot of stability.
No, not at all. But I especially love right at the very start. I knew it was going to be a great conversation between the two of them because as soon as the drawbridge comes down and the two meet, Kingslayer, Blackfish, it was just such a great exchange. Like we're not even saying each other's names. We're calling each other by the nicknames that we've been given. I just
And they're
really
yeah,
kind
and
of
they're
enjoyed
not
that.
like they're not great nicknames either.
No, well,
They're the
because they're
kind of
both
names that your
condescending.
enemies give you. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
But it's also a great set piece too. That bridge is a beautiful set piece that they're talking on. There's a lot of really cool ornate details that are involved in that bridge if you look closely at it.
Yeah, really, really good job with the sets and costuming. The Tully armor looks so good with the fish scales. Somebody on Twitter was saying that they look like pine cones. I said, no, it's fish scales. They're fish. Just play along.
It's
Um,
cool. It's cool to have a house sigil that can be transformed into such great armor.
yeah. So very well done. So next we see that the Greyjoys have arrived in Volantis. And now that they are back on land, before they head back out again, they're going to have a little bit of fun.
Well, most of them.
Yeah,
Theon's
most
not
of
going to
them.
have much fun.
Poor Theon. He's so pouty. But he
All these
gets a,
prostitutes and me with no dick.
yeah, he gets quite the pep talk from his sister.
Yeah, it's I guess it's as close to therapy as Iron Islanders can ever get.
I don't care what you want, drink. That's what it is. It's all motivated by drinking.
Yes.
So she said, I would never hurt you. And then in the next breath, she suggests that he kill himself if he can't snap
Yes.
out of it. I'm not going to hurt you, but I'm going to suggest that you hurt yourself if you're not able to help me. I need you. Uh, but it worked. It totally worked. And for the first time in a long time, you got that little spark where we saw that it looks like Theon is back.
Yeah, maybe. I'm still not 100% convinced, but then
No?
again, I'm not a Theon Greyjoy fan. I don't really
Yeah.
care about him. But it looks like he is starting to kind of deprogram from everything that he went through. I do like the way she said, "You've had a rough couple of years," and he's like, "A rough
What?
couple of years? Are you
Yeah.
fucking kidding me?"
He almost choked on his ale when she said, "Excuse me? You have no idea." This is probably one of my favorite scenes between them. And again, this is the second time that she's had to give him a bit of a pep talk. And, when he first arrived home at the Iron Islands, I thought that was a really strong scene between the two of them. And then here again, she's building him up in this pep talk and kind of giving him the ultimatum. And I'm not necessarily a fan of the Greyjoys, but I did like this scene. I thought
I
it was good.
just, their plan to make a pact with Daenerys. I don't know how well received it's going to be.
Well, Daenerys needs some ships, so I have a feeling it might be pretty well received.
She does need ships, that's for sure. But I'm curious to see what Yara and Theon expect to get out of it.
Yeah, I'm not sure. So
Like, will they want?
we're gonna make a
Will
pact and then we're gonna get the Iron Islands back.
will they try to maintain the Iron Islands as a separate kingdom? Because I don't know that Danny's going to go for that.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know, but they want to get their land back. She wants to take over all of their land, so I don't know how that's going to work out, but they have something that they can offer her. So there might be some concession there because of that. Because where else is she going to get a bunch of ships? I don't think they have 1,000, but that's better than nothing because all the other ones that she had were completely burned down. So it's a start.
Yeah, but until that day comes, she's got some fun time ahead of her with a lady of Atlantis.
Which, okay, I think it's great that this show is so skilled, or this show and these stories are so skilled in showing so many different sides of people where your good guys aren't 100% good, your bad guys aren't necessarily 100% bad, and we have a full range spectrum of likes and dislikes and sexuality in this show, in these stories, and I think it's wonderful.
Yeah, maybe Yara can win over Danny on her own. We get like a little you know
Well, back in
union of the two.
Well, back in season one, Danny had a little bit, that's how she learned to service Khal Drogo. She had a little bit of practice.
That's true. That's
So
true.
maybe. Who knows?
I'm all for that.
Sure you are.
All in favor.
Throw in a little Septa Unella and you'll be very happy.
that beats my fan fiction all to hell.
There you go. You're welcome. So after oh, by the way, I thought it was really interesting that just backtracking here a little bit, Danny seems to really attract all the eunuchs to her. She's got all
Yeah,
the
no kidding.
Unsullied, she's got Varys, and she's got Theon heading towards her. It's like, what is the
Yeah,
anyway?
like, are they all going to share a scene together? Are we going to
I
get like
hope
a
so.
full eunuch scene?
Tyrion will just have the jokes going left and right. He won't even be able to say them fast enough.
Yeah, remember the last time we saw Theon and Tyrion share a scene together back in season 1? He was giving Theon some money for his next romp with Roz.
Yeah. Yeah, well, that's not happening again.
Those were the days.
Yeah. So our last location of the show or of this episode is over in Bravos, and we see Arya, and she's trying to book passage home. She wants to head back to Westeros. She is done with
Yeah.
House of Black and White.
Yeah, she is ready to go. And she is in full Stark regalia here. Like, she's got the wardrobe of a Stark. She's got the Ned Stark hairdo that Jon is sporting right now, too. Like, she has her full Stark look. There's also, and I hate pointing out these things because it's a little bit nitpicky, there's kind of a weird continuity error there where she throws the first bag of, money to the boat captain,
Yeah.
and then she throws in the second one, and then when she goes around the corner to pick it back up again, there's only one bag sitting there.
I noticed
so
that too. Yeah.
just kind of a weird continuity thing. I hate being one of those people that points that stuff out, but that one I noticed.
You know what?
Because, like,
Go ahead.
with this show, it happens all the time. Like, people love to kind of nitpick those little things, like, oh, John's got 7 stab wounds, but he was only stabbed 6 times. And I feel like we're in this era of, you know, honest trailering and cinema sinning all of our different movies and TV shows and things that we love. And that's cool and it's fun and it's, a great time. But at a certain point, I think we can overdo it a little bit because we analyze every single frame of it. So
Yeah.
I don't love to nitpick some of the continuity stuff because every movie or TV show ever made has continuity errors in it. I just feel like when Thrones does it, it's like, oh, look what they did.
Yay, you've just discovered that people aren't perfect. You've discovered it, so you think that makes you perfect. Yay, go
Yeah, like
you. No.
jewelry changes hands,
Yeah.
things go from one pocket to another, liquids and cups and food on plates and you know I feel like if you consistently analyze some of that stuff, you're not going to enjoy anything.
Well, and I also think the people that are consistently analyzing some of that stuff have never once been or worked on a movie set or a set of a show where things can be filmed months apart from each other or, different crew or there's different circumstances and you don't remember and you take your best guess.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's stuff happens. Yay. Give yourself a gold star. You noticed it. But if that's the one thing that you take away from this episode that's your nitpick, then that's a pretty gosh darn good episode.
But either way, Arya is ready to go home.
She's ready to go home. She's got some bags of silver that she throws down, and I thought this was a different. We're seeing a different Arya because it was her delivery, her she is very sure of herself in this when she is having this exchange with this gentleman. That it was just a little bit more of an edge to her than what we've seen. But she's like, nope, we're not leaving tomorrow. We're not leaving, in a couple days. We're leaving at sunrise. I'll see you then. No, I want a cabin. I'm not going to be down in steerage. And she takes control of it. And then, very strangely, goes and hangs out in the open on a bridge, just kind of chilling when, you've got faceless men that are obviously going to be looking for you. Why are you just hanging out in the open? I mean,
Yeah,
that's just really overconfident.
she seemed to let her guard down, that's for sure. It seemed like a
Completely.
really out of character decision for her.
Yeah, just very strange. And we see this old woman approach her, and we quickly find out that it's not the old woman, that it's the waif. Slices her in the stomach and stabs her twice in the stomach.
Yeah, were you scared for Arya in that moment?
Yes.
I
Oh my
was too.
gosh. It startled me. I was not ready for it. I didn't have any clue that this was going to be happening, and it made me jump.
Yeah,
And
and
yeah,
and this show has trained us that, you know, any character can really be killed at any time. And I was like, holy shit, are they gonna like kill Arya
yeah,
right here?
they're doing this right now. But she hurls herself over the bridge down into the water, somehow swims to safety, and is able to stagger through the streets, which I don't know what kind of abs of steel she has. But just a couple episodes ago, we saw that guard, and I can't remember his name because I've already.
Arya Hota.
Thank you. I knew you knew where I was going to go with this. He just gets one little dagger in his gigantic back, and he's over dead. And then Arya gets sliced in the stomach and stabbed twice, and she's able to swim and walk. And so that's my nitpick of the show, of this episode, is that.
Yeah, well, Arya Hota going down on one
It's a travesty.
one shot to the back is yeah, that's pretty brutal. I mean, people do get stabbed in the stomach though and live. It's not completely
Sure,
unheard of.
sure.
She wouldn't even be the first Stark to get stabbed in the stomach on the
Nope.
show. She has that in common now with Rob and John.
Yes.
So I don't really have too much of an issue with that. I was a little bit surprised that they took it that far because I did start to actually worry about her. And then to kind of see her get out of the canal and then, get up and start walking around, and she's looking suspiciously at all these different Bravosi people, wondering, if the waif has another face that she's going to use, or
Oh, I took it as
whatever it
she was like
is.
looking for help. Like she was looking for anybody to meet her gaze because she needed if somebody was going to help her.
Oh, I thought she was thinking to herself, I can't trust any of these people because I don't know who is,
Yeah.
who's a faceless man who's going to take me down. And now we get to this idea that Arya is kind of alone.
Yeah.
Nobody there to help her. I mean, her biggest contacts there were Jaqen and the waif, and they're the ones trying to kill her, really.
Well, I think, and this is something that you had mentioned to me before that I kind of waved off to the side, but I have a feeling that maybe she'll meet up with the Mummers troop. That maybe she sees them and she thinks, okay, this is going to be, they're going to be my salvation. They can be, I can, hide with them for a little while.
That is
I don't
one of
know.
my that is one of my future predictions.
Yeah. I'm thinking that more so now after this. I thought we were done with them, but I think we might see them again. Overall, again, like I said at the start, not necessarily an action packed episode. You can't have every episode filled with dragons and gigantic battles. You need a little bit of downtime, you need a little bit of setup. And I mean, that's exactly what we got. And I think the best analogy of that, again, is the arrow pulling back. Last episode, this episode, it's setting us up for the last 3 episodes of the season. And I think it's going to be a roller coaster ride out of here.
Oh yeah, these 3 episodes coming up are going to be absolutely nuts. There are some huge things that we're still expecting to happen, including all this stuff going on in the north, Daenerys returning to Marine, you know, uh, Brienne meeting up with Jamie again, and all these different things that seem to be kind of ready to explode. Cersei's trial in King's Landing. So there's big pieces yet to move. And one of the other really cool little things that people might not be aware of is these last 3 episodes are going to be 3 of the longest episodes that Game of Thrones has ever done.
Really?
And they're so long, in fact, that they almost, if you were to add up the time, they would almost eke out another episode. So you almost have 4 episodes worth of material that they're still going to be covering.
Wow.
I think the finale is set to be like 70 minutes. Then the other episodes are like almost a full 60 minutes each.
Yeah, because
One
this
might
one
be
was about 50,
65 minutes.
this was about 10 minutes shorter, I think.
Yeah,
This
it
was
felt short too.
Yeah, it did. So good. It sounds like they're making up for that lost time because there was
That,
another episode this season the first episode of the season felt really short
yeah.
and really abrupt. So it sounds like they're making up for it. So I trust where they're taking us.
It's interesting that when people say not much happened this week, like we got introduced to the Hound again.
Yeah, that's huge.
Like the fucking Hound is back. That's enormous. So now, for those people who are not initiated into all the different spoilery things that are out there, you now know why the Clegane Bowl theory is so popular. Because the Hound is alive, and it is believed at some point he is going to confront his brother. Now, I don't know if the show took steps in that direction at
Yeah.
first.
Yeah.
At first in this episode, I was like, holy shit, this Game Bowl thing is actually going to happen. Like, this is real. They're setting this thing up, like, right now. And then when they wiped out that whole little hippie
Yeah.
commune thing, I was like, well, shit, no, I don't think they're going that direction.
I completely agree with you. I had the exact same reaction because when we saw Ian McShane's character of Ray, and he very prominently was wearing this medallion of the 7-pointed star. So it's telling you that there's some kind of a connection within that faith. I mean, who knows? Maybe he knows the High Sparrow. They're out there, doing good with the poor people, whatever. He could have, connections with him. I don't know. So yeah, that's what I was thinking too. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is gonna happen. This is really gonna happen. And the same thing. As soon as they all got wiped out, I don't think this is gonna happen because it looks like whatever's gonna go on with the Hound, he's gonna be doing some stuff with the brothers without banners. He's gonna be, going on a rampage with them to avenge this Ray character who he basically is like Chewbacca. He's got a life debt to him where he's gonna avenge him because he brought him back to life. And so I think he's gonna be spending his time down there. That's not to say that he won't confront his brother at some point, but I really don't think it's going to be as a result of fighting for the High Sparrow in a trial by combat against Cersei's the Mountain. I don't think that's what it's going to be.
Here's the thing that I'm left with after this episode.
Mm-hmm.
The cold open reintroduces the Hound in this really special way. And clearly this is his episode. But you wouldn't bring him back just to immediately kill him again. You wouldn't bring him back just to have some weird side plot. So the question that I'm left with moving forward is, what is the Hound's purpose now? And it could be this Clegane Bowl thing. It could be. But I don't think it's going to happen this season if it does, and I don't think it'll happen in this trial by combat. Although I'll be very happy to be wrong about that.
Any final thoughts from you, Nick, before we sign off on this next episode?
Yeah, I think this was a great reintroduction to the Hound, and it moved all the pieces to where they need to be to kind of get to this final sprint. And I am super excited about where this is going over the next 3 weeks.
I am too. I think we're going to need to strap in, keep all your hands, arms, and legs inside the vehicle at all times, and we are getting ready to go on a huge roller coaster ride. Be sure to take your Dramamine, because here we go.
All right, everybody. So you've heard what we think. We want to know what you think. So reach out to us on Twitter at NerdFlixChill. You could also find us on Facebook under the same name. Leave a comment on our wall. Let us know your thoughts. Let us know your predictions. Let us know what you like.